Inspiring Journeys, The Inside Story, Episode 2. Hi, my name is Lisa Ricci. I'm the EVP of the Chinese Chamber of Commerce of Arizona. I'm also the VP of AACAA Arizona. On behalf of these two organizations, we're conducting a series of interviews to share with you the story of successful and influential people. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and empower the viewers. Today is my honor to interview our distinguished guest, Barry Wong, Chairman of the Board, Global Ties Arizona. Hi, Barry. So good to see you today.
Hi, Lisa. Good to see you, and thank you for having me here today.
You served as legislator of the House of Representatives from 1993 to 2001, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you also was a member of the Arizona Corporation Commission in 2006.
Yes, that's correct. And I served as the first Asian American statewide office holder as a corporation commissioner.
Oh, great. How did you decide to get into politics?
Long story. Is really long before initially serving in the legislature. It dates back to my youth. In elementary, late elementary and high school, where I spent summers with my grandfather and learned from him community service. He's an immigrant from China, came in the 40s. Then my parents came in the early 50s to America, to Arizona. But I spent time with my grandfather and watched him, observed him as he served the local Chinese American community in Arizona, but also across the US and even internationally, is that he had this penchant, desire to serve the community, serving more than just himself, but the broader community to help people.
Oh, wow. So you're basically influenced by your family.
Just watching, just observing as a student in my youth, and watching him and how he was a leader and officer in the different positions, including Chinese Chamber of Commerce and many other Chinese organizations, Wong's Family Association. He was the early founder of that chapter in Phoenix. And what was especially notable was to observe on the international front.
This year is the election year. A lot of people do not understand the political structures. Can you tell the viewers a little bit about the structure in Arizona?
This year is a very important election year, not only in Arizona, across the country in America, but also internationally in different countries. This has been a very important year for national elections, but more specifically for America, United States, we have a presidential election, very important, every 4 years. And in Arizona, we have a election for United States Senator, and then in the state level, we have all the legislators, 90 legislators running for re-election or election for the first time. So these are very important, and I encourage the viewers to participate, if you're a U.S. citizen, to register and vote and actually vote, because your every vote matters in elections. Many people think I'm not going to vote because my vote doesn't matter, but so many elections are won or lost by just a few hundred votes. Just a case in point, three and a half years ago, the last presidential election, it was just really by 10,000 some votes statewide that the candidate won. And same thing for the election for governor. So don't think that your vote doesn't count, because there's been even elections where people won by 1 vote or won by 10 votes, or there's a tie vote on election day. And it's interesting, Arizona Constitution says if there's a tie vote, even after the recount, then the candidates can agree on how to break the tie. And it's called a game of chance. It says that you can pick a gambling, like a card game, to break the tie.
That's very interesting.
So in the past, they had played poker, and the person winning gets to go to office.
Wow.
Yes.
Very interesting story. Barry 讲到了非常重要的几个事情。今年是大选年，那你如果还没有注册投票，请你赶紧注册。11月份大选还来得及，每一个票都非常重要。有的时候呢，两个候选人之间的票就差非常少，几千张票，所以呢，每一张票都是非常重要的，请大家积极参与来注册投票。So the Arizona government has 3 branches, correct?
That's correct. Arizona is similar, the same as the national government. There's 3 branches of government, and that's the executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial. And let me explain the 3 simplistically. Executive branch is the governor, the president on the national level. And they and their office and the administration and the departments actually implement the laws that are passed by the second branch of government called the legislative branch of government. And these are elected legislators. The people elect them as well to represent the different districts, and they make the laws. They make the laws that govern us, and then the executive branch, the president and the governor, would then approve of the law. They sign the law.
Right.
And so then the third branch is called judicial, which many people are familiar as the courts, the judges. So they interpret the law. If there's any question on what the law means, you go to court and the judge decides what the law means, interpretation. And the beauty of the 3-branch system, and that was the reason it was created, is because we don't want one branch to be more powerful than the next. They all are equal branch to check on each other, accountability. So if the president or the governor does things that are outside of her or his power, then you can sue them and go to the court and put a stop to it.
Right.
Or if they pass something or they do something that is questionable, the legislature may say, let's change the law because the law doesn't work as
Right.
it's intended. So the 3 branches of government are called co-equal in our system of government on the state and national level.
Yes, that's very important. 刚才 Barry 又讲到了一个非常重要的问题，在我们亚利桑那州的政府是由3个独立的部门组成，这3个部门包括行政部门、立法部门和司法部门。这3个部门是平等的，他们互相制约，这样呢就会避免一个部门权力过大来操纵或者犯错误。
The government that is closest to the people is the most influential. What that means is that you have the federal government, the president and the Congress, and then you have the state government, governor, legislature, for example. Then you have the city, for example, the local government, the mayor, council member. We say that the government, let's say the city and the town is the lowest level, but sometimes it's the most important because we, the people, can pick up the telephone to your mayor and council member and have a faster response. Let's say you have problems with your road, your street is the holes in the street, or your water, city water is not flowing, or your garbage is not picked up. These are basic services that we need every day. So you can pick up the phone to your government that's closest to you, and most of the time they're more responsive, like right away, to give you the service.
Yes. 那 Barry 又讲到了哈，除了我们的州政府哈，其实更重要的还有这个城市，我们每个人居住的城市，他们呢管一些基础设施。如果我们对水电或这个垃圾的清理有什么不满的时候，也可以呢向这些城市的政府直接抱怨，这些事情呢州政府就不管了。所以呢，就是城市政府呢、市政府呢是一个最基础的一个部门。
Government is created that the power is designed so the people hold the power. That's the voting power. So you have the power and the elected official report to you. We don't have a king or emperor in this country. So they all are accountable to the people, the voters. So the old saying is that the voters is that you get the government that you deserve. So that in other words, that you hold the power to be involved in your government. If you choose not to be involved in your government, then it's your fault that you allow somebody else to make the decisions for you. So you have the authority to pick up the telephone and let's say you want to complain, do that. Or you go to the city council meeting to complain. The people have the power to do that. Or even and your children, if you're not happy with how the school is teaching your child, you can go to your teacher, you can go to the principal of the school, or if you don't get the results, you can go to the monthly meeting of the school board. School board is elected by you, the people, and you can go and testify and speak and complain to the school board.
Yes, that's correct. 那 Barry 又讲到了很重要的一点，就是在美国呢，我们不是像有皇帝啊，或者是有女王啊，还有这个君王来统治。我们这个国家呢是人民的国家，那人民有权利来选一些政府的官员，是为人民服务的。所以大家要积极的投票，选出自己喜欢的人，做的事情呢，对整个城市或学校都有益处。
And today's immigrants may not be running grocery stores and restaurants, and for professional services, for example, or education. Not everybody is able or should run for political office, but everybody can vote if you're a U.S. citizen. Go to a meeting, whether it's their board meeting, city council, to let people know that, especially Asian Americans, is that they don't show up. So more often than not, the politicians think there's so few of us as Asian Americans, and we don't have a voice because we choose not to speak up. So when you show up, it's more power to not only to you and your family, but the community at large.
刚才 Barry 又讲到，不是所有的人都想参政的，但是投票权是非常重要的。很多时候呢，我们对社会的某些现象和政府不满，我们亚洲人呢总是有点是亚裔的感觉，不会出去发声，不参与。所以呢，他鼓励大家呢，对什么不满要积极去参与，去议会啊，对学校不满也可以到学校开会的董事会啊，去提出反对意见。
Lisa, one example that I'm proud of watching the immigrant community a few years ago, a vocal gathering, Chinese Americans, Asian American, say the Chinese Cultural Center in Phoenix. It was a private commercial building. It was basically a shopping and office complex that another private company purchased. There was an outcry trying to save that, even though they were not successful. What's important is that they felt confident that they could speak up publicly in front of the news, TV, radio, newspapers, and that they were confident that this is our government too. And that's an example of continuing to be involved. And don't be afraid to lose, because sometimes you're going to lose. You're not going to always win, but continue to be involved.
Yes, that's correct. I was involved in that too. I went to protest several times. Also met with Mayor Kate Gallego at that time to voice our concerns and also represent our community.
Yes.
Some of our audience may not understand the fundamental difference between Democrats and Republicans. Can you please summarize the differences?
Lisa, that's a complex question. I'll try. I'll be disclosing my bias. I'm a registered Republican, but let me just give you a broad perspective. Immigrants are afraid to pick one side or the other, so they say I'm independent. So what does that mean? That means you're not picking one side or the other because they're unhappy with the two major political parties. But I think what's important is that the viewers need to think of what they stand for, what they believe in. So Democrat Party and versus Republican Party. Sometimes there's a confusion that immigrants think democracy. Yes, I support democracy, and therefore they support Democrat Party. But that's not necessarily the same because both parties support democracy. It's America.
Correct. That's correct.
Picture is the Democrat Party. Sometimes it's also called a Democratic Party. Government should take care of the people. Republicans think, their party think that, and its position is people should have responsibility for their own actions. And there should be limited government, smaller government. Republicans plus saying lower taxes, less government regulation on how the government controls your life or your business. On the Democrat side, saying that government needs to take care of the people, whether it's health care. Everybody supports education. The question is how much support in education?
Correct.
Republicans are saying choice is that your child should, the parents should be able to pick which school to send your kid, your child. Democrats want more money, and then you have the unions representing the teachers and others as well. So that's kind of the big picture, but you have to, the viewers have to think deeply. We have a tendency, especially as Asian Americans, Asians, and other minority groups, is that they think just limited to what does a politician support Asian or not. I think it's deeper than that. You care about your child's education. You care about low crime. You care about paying less in taxes after you work so hard. So you decide which side takes what position on those issues. So you, as a voter, you have to know how you feel as well.
Yes.
So people need to take stock and think deeply as how do you feel, and then see which side matches your values.
Yes.
And that's the party you're going to pick.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's very good point.
Yeah.
刚才北尔提到了我们这个州的两大党呢，也就是主要是民主党和共和党。那今年大选之际呢，那大家怎么投票，怎么选，投给谁呢？他刚才讲了一下主要的区别。那民主党呢，主要是喜欢有强大的政府，喜欢就是说，好像很关心照顾每个人。那共和党呢，希望呢给大家自由和主权。As the election is approaching in November, lots of people are paying attention to the presidential candidates. After debate, I heard so many complaints from my friends about these two presumptive candidates, Trump and Biden, right? A lot of people are not happy with their performances. Is it too late to change any of them before the election?
It's not too late because the selection of the candidate happens at the national convention of each party. So, for example, in mid-July would be the Republican National Convention, is when the there's delegates from each state go there to vote on which candidate would represent the party in the presidential election. Same thing, and then August is the Democratic Party would have their national convention, and there would be an election, the delegates would then elect. So there could be a change. If there's a change, that's where it happens. It would happen before the actual vote at those conventions.
But a lot of people already voted during the primary. I heard over 90% of the delegates already voted. Still possible to re-vote at the convention?
Well, the primary, it's called the presidential preference primary. Arizona had it early in the year, around March, and other states had it already. The presidential primaries is kind of like a preliminary, because that decides. The United States have a unique system called the Electoral College. The election of the president doesn't just happen of total votes combined. It's a system where each state has so many votes to this Electoral College based on number of members of Congress they have and the 2 U.S. senators. But they will always have 2 senators, 2 and 1 Congress member. So that's they will always have 3 delegates. So you divide by you have to get 50% plus 1 of the Electoral College delegates. And that's why the two presumptive nominees through that primary system won enough states that they had the numbers, the delegate numbers.
Right.
But to make it official, that's where the conventions actually have the actual official vote of the delegates to select the candidate that's going to represent the party. So this is the presidential preference primary is kind of the preliminary, but the official selection happens at the convention.
That's correct. So it's still possible. Might be challenging, but still possible.
It's possible, but not. Probability is not likely. And then the November election will then determine which states cast who has the most electoral college votes by state count. Again, like I said, it's not the total number of votes combined in the country. It's still so you can win the total number of votes and still lose.
That's correct. Yeah.
Because it's based on this electoral college system.
Yes.
And the reason it was set up is that they want to make sure every state has a voice. You don't want the big states with a big population to control everything.
Right.
Right? Because you have a few states that have a big population, right?
Yes. That's
California, Texas, New York, Florida, Illinois, for example. So you want to give every state some say in the selection of the president.
Yes, that makes sense. 那刚才 Barry 讲了一下哈，美国这个选举制度呢，不是说你得票最多你就能赢，因为它这是 Electoral College。为什么有这个系统呢？就是有的州大，有的州小，这样的话呢，可以均衡一下各个州的选票。现在呢，尽管还可能有机会来换候选人，但是呢是非常困难的一件事情。两党呢都会在他们的大会上来决定候选人，基本上呢初选已经决定了，除非有什么特殊的情况吧，将是非常难的。好 ，Barry, you were appointed by Governor Ducey in 2015 as the executive director of the Equal Opportunity Office, correct?
Yes, it's the Governor's Office of Equal Opportunity, and I was honored that then Governor Doug Ducey appointed me to head that as one of his offices within the governor's office. And allow me to explain briefly about that office. It's a small office, but the primary function is to make sure state employees and applicants for state jobs have a voice if they feel they've been subject to discrimination.
I see.
And so that was the history of that office. And when I was hired, the governor liked what I did in the community on his behalf, reaching out to all the community groups. And so he said to use my experience in the community to also use this office to expand the reach of the governor's office to many groups in the community outside of the state. I mean, outside of the state office. So what I did is I took that message and expanded it and reached out to community groups. So that would be, for example, the Asian American community, to make sure that they feel comfortable of opportunities in the state, whether it's a job opportunity, doing business with the state, or getting appointed by the governor to serve on a state board or a commission, for example, to help run the government. And too often politicians, they reach out to the main minority groups, the African American, Hispanic, Native American, and Asian. But what does Asian mean? That's such a broad term, right?
That's correct, yes.
So it was important for me to parcel out that Asian. What's Asian mean? Asian means, Chinese ethnic Chinese, Taiwanese. Even when that group, you have Filipino, Korean, Vietnamese, on and on, right? And it was important to reach out to each community, and often than not, it's more work, but it has to be done.
Yes.
you can't be lazy as a state employee. You have to go do the job, go there at their meetings and dinners, at nights and weekends, whatever it takes, that they feel that they also are part of this government. And so that's what I did. It was important to do, from African American community, Hispanic, Latino community. The governor had a separate office for Native American, but then also the international community, the small business community, and veterans community, and the disabled community. So that's a big group, but it was important to do so that they feel that this government cares about them.
Yes, we really appreciate what you did to the community.
Thank you.
So I want to ask you some personal questions. Which historical figure do you identify the most with?
So important to understand the history of this country. It's not just the immigrants coming to America that have civic engagement, that people learn about our government. And so I'm pointing to one historical figure is the founding president of this country, George Washington. And just thinking back is that when America, the 13 colonies of Great Britain, of United Kingdom, decided that, hey, we want to be our own country. And that's a pretty bold statement.
Yes.
And then that created a war. And of course, the British government didn't want to give up this bountiful land.
Right.
They wanted to control the king. So George Washington was the general that led the effort and became the first president. And then later, the President Abraham Lincoln is another notable figure. I bring him up is because he was responsible for freeing the slaves. That's a major shift in this country.
Yes.
Is that it was right before he freed the slaves, there was a civil war. The southern states where they had the farms and the cotton plantations, that a lot of these landowners owned these slaves. They needed this labor to plant and harvest the crops. They didn't want to just give up at the time, they called them property, the slaves.
Yes.
And so when President Lincoln became president, slowly some of these states said, okay, we're going to break off from the country and have our own separate country. And so that started this war, but ultimately President Lincoln said, okay, we're going to free the slaves. And that eventually led to reuniting the country and just changing the morality of owning another human being. That's a big deal.
Yes,
that's a big
correct.
deal. So those two historic figures in the political world, I can point to a lot of modern times, but I think that's to understand the history of this country, to understand those two major leaders. On the business side, I was thinking about preparing for this interview today. Is the notable on the business is I'm pulling out my smartphone. It's like, okay, Steve Jobs, he's a major business figure, right? So I point to him. Henry Ford started the transition from the horses to the cars.
Yes.
So those are examples that immigrants and others in America, is that there's a great country, is that there's a land of opportunity, is that if you're willing to work hard, follow the law, and pay your taxes, you have endless opportunity in this country.
That's correct.
Endless opportunity.
Yes, this country is the land of opportunities. That's what they say, right?
Absolutely, and it's true. We have a big issue about border security, right, at the southern border. You have to see why people want to come into America, risk their lives and the kids to come in illegally and take a chance because they see this as the land of opportunity.
Yes,
right?
I agree, yes. What issues are you most concerned with in this world?
Wow.
That's a big question.
That's a big question. I think the most concerning is security. My biggest concern is that we don't want that to be elevated to become a World War III. We don't need another World War. So.
Gone. Do you have any regrets in life?
Regrets are a waste of time. I think everybody has setbacks in professional and personal life. That's life. It happens. The question is, how do you respond to it? And how do you pick yourself up and move forward and learn from mistakes and errors? And I don't think there's any regrets. It's just learning to respond and move ahead and build confidence and support each other. Not only have strong interpersonal relationships, but also community relationships, because that's all part of the social fabric. When we're involved in the community, we support each other.
Yes, that's right.
When one of us falls, we help each other up.
If you could change one thing in the world, what would that be?
I'm not sure what the answer is. I think there's many answers. It's a complex question. Challenges in the world that there's a lot of smart people out there that can address, whether it's climate issues, military incursions of another country, border security, cybersecurity. So I think more importantly is we, the people, going back to who we are, that we get engaged in the process. Not everybody is going to run for president or governor or even legislature or even city council, but everybody can play a role somewhere, even small, in your workplace, for example. Most of us go to work, come home, they have your kids, if you have kids, but to make a difference, think about, how do I make a difference? If it's in your workplace, do you have a work council, a employee group that you can get involved in? Be a leader, be involved in your community. Do you have a Chinese chamber, just an example, a community organization, or even your Asian American Arts and Culture Association, something that you enjoy. My rule is that you want to if you get involved in the community, but you have to believe in what they do and you have to enjoy doing it. Because life is short, you have a lot of competing demands from family to work, but you got to enjoy doing it and believe in the mission. And everybody can play a role and make it a difference.
Yes, that's very good advice. Thank you so much, Barry, for your time and for sharing your experience with us today. Your information is really very valuable to the viewers. Hopefully it will help them to decide who to vote for in this November.
Thank you, Lisa, for inviting me, and I enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.